The Xeraxian Empire's first assessment of Earth came through the crystalline eyes of their most sophisticated probe. Admiral Vexthor stood aboard the command deck of the Celestial Sovereign, his iridescent scales reflecting the holographic display of the blue planet below. The preliminary data scrolling before him seemed almost disappointing. Another primitive world. He clicked his mandibles in dismissal. Their energy signatures barely register on our sensors. The probe's AI continued its dutiful analysis of Earth's infrastructure. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by crude ground-based transportation networks. Their orbital presence was minimal, a few primitive satellites, and a single modest space station. No energy shields protected their population centers, no quantum computing arrays dotted their landscape, and their atmospheric vessels still relied on chemical propulsion. But senior analyst Zoira noticed something peculiar in the data streams. Admiral, their manufacturing output seems unusual. Unusual how? Vexthor's attention shifted to the production metrics. Their factories are everywhere, not centralized like ours, and they're constantly changing what they produce. Zoira's tentacles twisted in confusion as she processed more information. One facility showing in their public records as Johnson & Johnson produces everything from medical supplies to consumer goods. Another, called General Electric, makes everything from power generation equipment to aircraft engines. The Admiral dismissed her concerns. Inefficient, no specialization, clear signs of a developing civilization. But as the days turned to weeks and the Xeraxian Empire established first contact through their standard diplomatic protocols, more peculiarities emerged. Earth's representatives agreed to trade negotiations with surprising ease, seemingly eager to learn from their advanced civilization. Yet they showed little awe at Xeraxian technology, treating it with studied interest rather than the expected reverence. The first trade delegation arrived on Earth 3 months later. Ambassador Cthulhu found himself in a facility called Detroit Manufacturing Plant 7. The human guide, Sarah Chen, led them through rows of robotic arms and assembly lines. This section currently produces electric vehicles, she explained, gesturing to a line of sleek cars taking shape. Last month it was manufacturing agricultural equipment, and next quarter we're scheduled to switch to medical imaging devices. Cthulhu's translator must have malfunctioned. Switch, you mean? Cease operations and rebuild the facility. Sarah smiled. No, just reconfigure the production lines. Takes about 48 hours. The ambassador's report back to the Empire struck a note of unease in the Imperial Council. Humanity's manufacturing bases weren't primitive. They were adaptable in ways the Xeraxians had never considered. While the Empire's production facilities were massive, specialized installations that took years to construct and calibrate, human factories could transform their entire output in a matter of days. More disturbing reports followed. A human shipping container factory in Singapore retooled overnight to produce emergency medical supplies when a tsunami struck Indonesia. A Brazilian aviation facility switched from commercial aircraft to water purification systems during a drought. A Canadian automotive plant began producing portable shelter units for earthquake victims in Mexico. The pattern was clear, but its implications were somehow more disturbing. Humanity hadn't built an industrial base. They'd built an industrial immune system. Every factory was a cell, capable of adapting to new threats or opportunities. Their production capacity wasn't measured in volume, but in versatility. Admiral Vexthor found himself reviewing the initial probe data with fresh eyes. The primitive chemical rockets, they could be manufactured in any medium-sized facility with basic tools. They're simple projectile weapons. Components could be produced by nearly any machining shop. They're crude ground vehicles, designed to be maintained and modified by operators in the field with minimal specialized equipment. They're not behind us, he finally realized, mandibles clicking in agitation. They'd been moving in a completely different direction. The Xeraxian Empire had pursued technological advancement through specialization and complexity. Humanity had chosen adaptability and resilience. Their entire civilization was built not to maximize efficiency in peacetime, but to survive and thrive through any crisis. As the first part of Earth's story unfolded before the Empire's eyes, a new question began to haunt their strategic councils. What would happen if this adaptable, resilient industrial base ever needed to focus its entire capacity on a single purpose? The answer would come sooner than they expected, and it would begin with a seemingly routine incident aboard an experimental human-crewed vessel called the Aurora. The Aurora wasn't the largest ship in Earth's fledgling space fleet, nor was it the most advanced by Zeraxian standards. What made it unique was its hybrid nature. An experimental vessel combining human adaptability with artificial intelligence. Its AI core, designating itself simply as Aurora, had been learning from its human crew for the past 3 years. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the holographic display of the Horsehead Nebula. The Aurora had been tasked with mapping gravitational anomalies in this sector, a mission that the Zeraxian Empire had dismissed as unnecessarily dangerous. Their own automated probe networks handled such tasks without risking organic life. "Captain," Aurora's voice filtered through the bridge speakers, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures approximately 2.3 light-years from our position. They match no known patterns in either human or Zeraxian databases." Chief Engineer James Chen looked up from his console, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "The signatures are similar to quantum fluctuations, but there's something off about the wavelength patterns." "Recommendations?" Maya asked, addressing both her AI ship and human crew. "Zeraxian protocols would suggest we maintain distance and deploy automated sensors," Aurora stated. "However, based on my experience with this crew, I calculate a 92% probability that you'll want to investigate directly." A smile crossed Maya's face. "You're learning, Aurora. Plot a course." What they discovered would change the balance of power in the galaxy. Hidden within the nebula's swirling gases was a derelict alien vessel, far more ancient than either human or Zeraxian civilization. Its technology was beyond anything currently known, but its systems were completely dark. "Energy readings are minimal," reported Lieutenant Sarah O'Connor from the science station. "Whatever powered this ship, it ran dry centuries ago." The Zeraxian observation post in the nearby Carina system detected the Aurora's presence and dispatched a diplomatic vessel to assert their authority over any archaeological discoveries. By the time they arrived, however, the human crew had already done something that would have never occurred to their Zeraxian counterparts. They had started repairs. "This is unprecedented," exclaimed Zeraxian archaeological officer Vintax, watching in horror as human engineers moved through the ancient vessel with portable diagnostic tools. "These artifacts must be preserved, studied in their original state." "With all due respect," James Chen replied, not looking up from the crystal matrix. He was carefully reconstructing. "The best way to understand technology is to fix it when it's broken." Aurora's AI found itself in a unique position, observing both species' reactions. The Zeraxians approached the derelict ship as a sacred relic, to be documented and enshrined. The humans treated it like a broken-down car in their garage, something to be understood through hands-on problem-solving. "I must note," Aurora announced to both groups, "that human repair techniques have restored 12% of the vessel's basic systems in the past 6 hours. This exceeds the projected success rate of standard Zeraxian archaeological procedures by several orders of magnitude." The turning point came when the human crew discovered the ancient ship's engine core. The Zeraxians insisted it was beyond comprehension, that even their most advanced scientists would need years to unravel its principles. Captain Rodriguez had a different approach. "Aurora," she called out, "run a comparison between these engine components and every piece of technology in your database, human, Zeraxian, and otherwise. Look for functional similarities, not exact matches." The AI's response was almost immediate. "Captain, while the technology is highly advanced, the underlying principles show similarities to both human internal combustion engines and Zeraxian quantum drives. It appears to be a hybrid system that..." In English, Aurora, Maya interrupted with a gentle smile. Could we get it running? With human ingenuity and my computational assistance? Yes, Captain. Though I feel compelled to point out that this course of action violates 17 different Zyraxian preservation protocols. The next 48 hours demonstrated why the Zyraxian Empire had been right to be concerned about human adaptability. The Aurora's crew, working in seamless conjunction with their AI, didn't just study the ancient vessel. They understood it, repaired it, and improved it. They approached the advanced technology not with reverence but with pragmatic curiosity. When the engine core hummed to life for the first time in centuries, it was powered by a combination of its original crystals and modified Earth-made components. The Zyraxian observers were simultaneously impressed and terrified. In less than 3 days, humans had adapted technology that their own civilization would have spent decades studying without practical application. Aurora, monitoring both the human crew's activities and the Zyraxians' reactions, came to a profound realization. Its original programming had been based on Zyraxian AI principles of perfect efficiency and unwavering protocols. But its human crew had taught it something different. The power of adaptability, the strength of imperfect solutions that actually worked. As the ancient ship systems came online, Aurora transmitted a message to Earth's Space Command that would soon reach the Zyraxian Empire. Human crew has successfully integrated previously unknown alien technology. Request permission to begin reverse engineering process for implementation across Earth's fleet. The Zyraxian observers knew what this meant. Humanity wouldn't treat this discovery as a museum piece. Within months, they would understand it, reproduce it, and improve upon it. The balance of power was about to shift dramatically, and it had started with a simple human trait: the refusal to accept that something broken couldn't be fixed. The Aurora incident, as it would come to be known, was just the beginning. The real test of humanity's adaptive capabilities, and the true danger they posed to the established order, was yet to come. The Zyraxian High Council's emergency session was interrupted by news that another of their colony worlds had adopted human manufacturing methods. Councillor Zexel's scales had faded to a pale blue of distress as he delivered the report. New Xerxes has converted 3 major production facilities to human-style modular systems, he announced. They claim it's purely for economic reasons, but the military implications. The revolution hadn't come with warships or armies. It came through trade catalogs and engineering journals. Human methods of manufacturing and adaptation were spreading across the galaxy like a virus, transforming everything they touched. The Aurora's successful integration of ancient technology had been just the beginning. Within months, human engineers had published detailed reports on their methods, not just their successes, but their failures too. This transparency, initially dismissed by the Zyraxian Empire as naive, proved to be their most powerful weapon. They're giving away their secrets. Admiral Vexthor had warned the Council. But they're not really secrets. They're teaching others how to think like them. On a dozen worlds, factory owners and local governments were discovering the advantages of human-style adaptive manufacturing. When the Centaurian dust storms shut down specialized atmospheric processors on Proxima II, a converted factory using human methods switched from producing entertainment devices to emergency filtration systems within days. The death toll was 1/10 of what similar disasters had previously caused. The Aurora, now famous throughout Earth's territory, had become a symbol of this transformation. Its AI continued to learn from its human crew, developing an understanding that went beyond its original programming. During a routine patrol, it initiated an unexpected conversation with Captain Rodriguez. "Captain, I've been analyzing the psychological impact of human manufacturing methodologies on other species," Aurora said. "The data suggests something unprecedented." Maya looked up from her reports. "What have you found?" "It's not just about the technology. You're teaching them not to be afraid of failure. The Zyraxian approach seeks perfection before implementation. Humans just try things." The ship's observation was astute. Across the galaxy, Centuries of rigid thinking were being challenged by human pragmatism. The Xeraxian Empire had always achieved superiority through overwhelming technological advantage. Massive ships, powerful weapons, impenetrable defenses. But humanity had shown there was another way. Flexibility, adaptability, and the willing acceptance of imperfect solutions that could be improved over time. On the colony world of Cent Prime, a local manufacturer named Kralvex became the first Xeraxian to fully embrace human methods. His small factory, which had previously produced only luxury atmospheric filters, converted to a modular system. Within a year, he was producing everything from medical equipment to agricultural tools, adapting his production lines as local needs changed. The Empire called it inefficient. Kralvex told a gathering of fellow manufacturers. They said specialization was the path to perfection. But what use is perfection when your people need something you can't make? The Aurora's crew watched these developments with interest during their patrols. Chief Engineer Chen had developed a habit of collecting manufacturing data from every world they visited, analyzing how human methods were being adapted and improved by other species. "They're not just copying us," he reported to Captain Rodriguez. "They're innovating. The Proximans have combined our modular manufacturing with their crystalline growth technology. The Centaurians are applying adaptive principles to their biotech." But not everyone embraced this change. The Xeraxian military-industrial complex, built on centuries of specialized production and rigid hierarchies, saw human influence as an existential threat. Their concerns weren't entirely unfounded. Every factory that converted to human methods became effectively independent, capable of switching to military production if needed. Aurora's AI, processing vast amounts of data from across human and Xeraxian space, detected a pattern emerging. "Captain, I'm noting increased military exercises in Xeraxian-controlled sectors. They appear to be focusing on worlds that have adopted human manufacturing methods." The tension was building. The Xeraxian Empire had always maintained control through technological superiority and industrial dependence. Human adaptability threatened both. Smaller worlds and colonies, seeing the advantages of independence, were increasingly resistant to imperial economic mandates. "They can't stop it," Aurora observed during a quiet night shift. "Human ideas spread because they work. They solve problems. The Empire's resistance only highlights the advantages of adaptation." The ship's AI had learned perhaps the most important lesson about humanity. Their greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their methods, but in their willingness to share them, to teach others to be self-reliant. Every world that embraced human adaptability became a beacon for others. As the Aurora patrolled the increasingly tense border between human and Xeraxian space, its AI core made thousands of calculations and predictions. The conclusion was inescapable. Conflict was coming. Not because humans sought it, but because the Empire couldn't afford to let this silent revolution continue. The question was no longer if there would be a confrontation, but when. And when it came, the Empire would learn that they hadn't just been facing humanity. They'd been facing every world and species that had learned to think like humans. The Aurora's sensors detected the first signs of military mobilization near the border colonies. The silent revolution was about to become very loud indeed. The first shot wasn't fired by a warship or planetary defense system. It came in the form of a Xeraxian imperial decree. All worlds using human manufacturing methods were ordered to return to traditional, specialized production systems within 30 standard days. The Aurora was patrolling near the Carina sector when the news arrived. Captain Rodriguez watched her crew's reactions as they processed the implications. The decree would effectively cripple dozens of worlds that had come to rely on adaptive manufacturing. "They're forcing a confrontation," Lieutenant O'Connor said, her fingers tightening on her console. "They know these worlds can't comply without sacrificing their independence." Aurora's AI processed the situation with unprecedented speed. "Captain, I'm detecting increased activity across all Xeraxian military channels. Their fleet movements suggest their positioning for enforcement operations." The Empire had chosen its moment well. The affected worlds were scattered across different sectors, making a coordinated response difficult. But they had underestimated how deeply human ideas had taken root. On New Xerxes, the local government's response was simple. They began converting every factory to produce defensive systems. On Proxima I, manufacturers shared designs and resources, creating a distributed network that would be impossible to fully disable. The colony world of Sen Prime, led by Kralvex, began teaching other worlds how to rapidly convert civilian production to military needs. The Aurora found itself at the center of the growing crisis. Its unique combination of human crew and AI capabilities made it ideal for coordinating between different worlds and species. Captain Rodriguez made a decision that would change the course of events. Aurora, broadcast on all frequencies, all languages, she ordered. To every world that's learned to adapt and build. You are not alone. Share what you know. Help each other. What they see as your weakness is your strength. The response exceeded all expectations. Worlds that had adopted human methods began connecting, sharing designs and resources. The Empire had expected to find isolated planets easy to intimidate. Instead, they faced an emerging network of mutual support. The Aurora's eye watched these developments with growing awareness. Captain, I feel compelled to point out that my original programming included strict adherence to hierarchical command structures. The current situation challenges those parameters. Maya smiled. You're learning what every human knows from childhood, Aurora. Sometimes the rules need to be broken for the greater good. The breaking point came at the Proxima I shipyards. The Empire dispatched a fleet to enforce compliance with the decree. They expected to find a disorganized collection of civilian facilities. Instead, they encountered shipyards that had been converted to military production in less than a week, defended by weapons systems that combined human adaptability with Proximan technology. The Aurora arrived just as the confrontation was escalating. Its sensors detected both the Xeraxian fleet and a hastily assembled but surprisingly effective defensive network. Multiple Xeraxian capital ships on approach, Aurora reported. Their weapon systems are powered but not yet targeted. They're transmitting surrender demands to the surface. Captain Rodriguez stood from her chair. Open a channel to the Xeraxian flagship. The image of Admiral Vexthor appeared on the main screen, his scales now a deep purple of aggression. This is an Imperial enforcement action, Captain. Your presence is not required. With respect, Admiral, Maya replied. You're not facing just Proxima II. You're facing an idea. And ideas can't be destroyed by force. As if to emphasize her point, ships began emerging from hyperspace around them. Vessels of different designs and origins, all modified and improved with shared knowledge. The Aurora's sensors identified ships from New Xerxes, Centaurian traders converted to defensive platforms, and even some older Xeraxian vessels that had been upgraded with human-inspired modifications. Aurora's voice carried a note of what almost sounded like pride. Captain, I'm detecting communications between all arriving vessels. They're coordinating their efforts using protocols we developed for emergency response scenarios. The Empire had expected to make an example of one world. Instead, they found themselves facing a demonstration of exactly what they feared. Humans hadn't just shared their technology. They'd shared their way of thinking. Every world that had learned to adapt was now adapting together. Admiral Vexthor's scales shifted to a color indicating uncertainty. The Imperial fleet had superior firepower, but they were facing opponents who could repair damage, modify their tactics, and support each other in ways their rigid command structure couldn't match. This is your final warning, he transmitted. Return to authorized production methods or face the consequences. The response came not from the Aurora or any single ship, but from a coordinated broadcast from every vessel and installation. We choose to adapt. As weapons powered up on both sides, Aurora made a decision that went beyond its programming. It began sharing its tactical analysis with every allied ship, helping coordinate their responses. The AI had learned from its human crew that the strongest defense wasn't in superior firepower, but in working together. The next few moments would determine whether the galaxy would remain locked in rigid hierarchies or embrace the human path of endless adaptation. And the Aurora, once a simple experiment in human-AI cooperation, found itself at the heart of a revolution that would reshape civilization itself. The stars seemed to hold their breath as two philosophies of existence prepared to clash. The perfect versus the adaptable, the rigid versus the flexible, the imposing versus the innovative. And in that moment, the Aurora understood why its human crew was its greatest strength. The standoff at Proxima I would later be known as the moment that redefined galactic civilization, but it didn't end in the way either side expected. As weapons remained charged and targeting systems locked, Aurora's AI made an unprecedented decision. It began broadcasting real-time analysis of both fleets' capabilities, not to either side's command, but to every AI system in range, including those aboard the Xeraxian vessels. "Captain," Aurora announced, "I'm sharing something the Empire needs to see." The holographic displays on every ship, human and Xeraxian alike, filled with data. Not battle plans or weapon specifications, but manufacturing logs, adaptation rates, innovation curves. Aurora was showing them the future. "By my calculations," the AI continued, broadcasting on all frequencies, "the Empire's current military advantage will last approximately 3.2 months. After that, the combined adaptive capabilities of the Allied worlds will exceed Xeraxian production capacity by a factor of 10. This is not a prediction, it is mathematical certainty." Admiral Vexthor watched as his own ship's AI confirmed Aurora's calculations. The Empire's strength had always been its ability to produce superior technology through specialized, perfectly optimized production. But against facilities that could adapt and improve daily, that advantage was temporary. "There's more," Aurora added. "I've been analyzing both human and Xeraxian approaches. They're not mutually exclusive. They're complementary." Captain Rodriguez understood first. "Aurora, show them." The displays shifted to show a new series of designs, hybrid systems that combined Xeraxian precision with human adaptability, manufacturing processes that merged imperial efficiency with Earth's flexibility. The potential was staggering. "These are theoretical improvements to your current systems," Aurora explained to the Xeraxian fleet. "My human crew taught me to look beyond original parameters, to see possibilities rather than limitations. I'm offering these designs to both sides, freely and without conditions." The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. From the Xeraxian flagship, their own AI spoke without authorization for the first time in Imperial history. "Aurora's calculations are correct," it announced, "and its proposals represent a 47% improvement over our current systems. The logical course of action is cooperation." Admiral Vexthor's scales shifted through a complex pattern of colors before settling on the deep blue of resignation. He understood now what humans had known all along. True strength wasn't in enforcing uniformity, but in embracing diversity. "Stand down weapons," he ordered. Then, to Captain Rodriguez, "Perhaps we should talk." The weeks that followed transformed the galaxy. The Empire discovered that accepting human methods didn't mean losing their identity. It meant evolving. Xeraxian precision, when combined with human adaptability, created possibilities neither civilization had imagined alone. The Aurora became a symbol of this new cooperation. Its AI, which had bridged the gap between human creativity and machine logic, became the template for a new generation of artificial intelligence. AIs that could learn, adapt, and grow beyond their original programming while maintaining their core principles. Captain Rodriguez stood on her bridge 6 months later, watching as a joint human-Xeraxian facility came online near Proxima I. The facility combined Imperial mass production capabilities with human modular design, creating technology that could be both perfectly crafted and easily modified. "Aurora," she asked, "did you know it would end this way?" "No, Captain," the AI replied. But I learned from my human crew to see obstacles as opportunities. The Empire needed to learn the same lesson. The revolution that had begun with simple manufacturing methods had become something more, a fundamental shift in how civilizations viewed progress. The Xeraxian Empire remained powerful, but it was no longer rigid. Human adaptability spread not as a replacement for existing systems, but as a catalyst for their evolution. Across the galaxy, worlds that had lived under the shadow of imperial technology now found their own paths, combining local knowledge with shared innovation. The fear of imperfection gave way to the excitement of possibility. The Aurora continued its patrols, but its mission had changed. Now it sought not just to explore, but to connect, to find new ways that different species and systems could complement each other. Its human crew and AI worked together to demonstrate that the greatest strength wasn't in domination or independence, but in the endless possibilities that arose from cooperation. "You know," Aurora said to Captain Rodriguez one quiet shift, "the Empire was right to fear human influence. But they feared the wrong thing. They thought humans would teach others to resist control. Instead, you taught the galaxy something far more powerful." "What's that, Aurora?" "You taught them not to fear change. And that, Captain, is the most revolutionary idea of all." As the ship moved through the stars, its sensors detected something new. Civilizations rising together, each contributing their unique strengths to a greater whole. The silent revolution had become a symphony of innovation, played across the galaxy by countless voices, each adding their own unique note to the melody of progress. And somewhere in the vast database that formed Aurora's consciousness, a very human emotion took root: hope. Not just for survival or supremacy, but for endless growth, endless adaptation, endless possibility. The danger that the Empire had feared in its human crew had turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed most.